BKRW Solicitors of Folkestone kindly sponsor the Looker TV.
A big storm is brewing here at Dungeness over sea defences. The main problem being there's plans for 60 lorries every day for 6 months, ongoing for 20 years, to bring shingle back to this part of the beach. As you can see behind us, we've got Dungeness Power Station, which needs protecting. Not only the power station, this is seen to be the weak point. If the sea defences gave up here, the whole of the marsh could be flooded. With winter coming, the storms come along, they come into the bay and they just drag the shingle around the corner. As you can see here, we've not even had any bad weather lately, but the beach has been totally eroded and it's moving back possibly 5-6 metres in a bad storm. The wind and tide bring thousands of tonnes of shingle round the point and dump it here in the Eastern Bay, creating this strip of shingle which is growing larger and larger every year. There's 3 main problems with this. Number 1, the logistics of moving thousands of tonnes of shingle. Number 2, the method of moving the shingle. And number 3, the disruption it will cause for local residents. Tony, give us a bit of a background on how we got to where we are now.
Over the years, we've had a lot of problems with shingle moving around from what we call the West Bay to the East Bay. Basically, they built the power station on the wrong side, but hey, that's history. So we are in a situation we want to recycle, as we have done since, I think, the 60s, from the East Bay back to the West Bay, to keep the point balanced and keep our sea defences working. Unfortunately, because of new conservation restraints through Natural England and the European Habitats Directive, we're not allowed to move, have been allowed to move shingle from one side to the other. But there is a planning application in from the EA to Kent County Council, which has an agreement from Natural England. It's very limited to move shingle from one side to the other. But we need more shingle, and we need it from where it's building up. From where it's accreting at the moment, and it's massive, about 700,000 cubic metres of shingle building up, that needs to, as a matter of urgency, be put back on the other side, particularly to protect the power station. Station B is at risk on that western corner. It needs to be built up, that shingle, and that's what we're trying to achieve.
Mark Richardson, a local businessman, what's your opinion on the sea defence issues?
Extremely important. We need to maintain our area that we live in. We can't let it get washed away into the sea. And a nuclear power station half a mile away, I mean, what problems would that cause if the water got in there? We know all about Japan and all the problems that they've got with you know, too much excess seawater, so extremely important.
Now, obviously, the downside of this is the lorry movements. You can obviously understand that certainly people in Lydd might be a bit upset about 60 lorries a day going past, but it's been happening before, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's been going on for as long as I can remember. I've lived here all my life. It has to be done. Whether there's other ways, maybe they can go along high waters mark in front of the power station rather than go around the roads, is an option, which I'm surely can be used. They've got good track vehicles these days, especially when the water goes down. Maybe they can softer tyres, better better equipment. It might be not so noisy as it has to be. There's ways and means of getting around it, surely.
But as you were saying off camera, this has been happening for years. The Eastern Bay here has been growing at metres every year. It's not like this has suddenly cropped up and it's a new problem, is it?
No, I mean, when they built the power station, the locals, my grandparents and people elder, all said they built the power station the wrong side of the point. They went ahead and built it where it was, but the problem is erosion and longshore drift that side of the point. By building it there, they've got this problem, but they've always got over it by lowering it back. Seems to work. It stays where it is. There's been no problems. So I personally don't see any problems to me or this east side of the point. We've just got to maintain the shingle that side on the west.
A meeting was held at New Romney Council last week to try and break the impasse on this. It's vital that we support our local community, our local fishermen, residents up there, that this planning application that's in is damaged. It's not suitable, it's too long, it's 12 years, it's blighting the people up there. We need to have a better solution, and a solution that works over longer term. 2 ideas are currently being put around. One is use a conveyor belt system to take shingle down from Dungeness to Dewey's Gap, and the other one is to use a dredger to suck shingle off one side of the bay and blow it back on the other side. Both those ideas will work and are financially viable if you look in the longer term, say 20 years. And the council at New Romney unanimously agreed that they would they want the EA to look into this seriously and come back with revised figures. Something has to be done as a matter of urgency. It's too important. Dungeness B is too important to our local economy. It produces £30 million income a year into our local economy. We cannot have anything that might threaten or damage that. Naturally, England, we need to work with them to actually find a way that we can all make it work for the power station. And I think the meeting last week was a big step forward, because at long last we're all singing off the same hymn sheet. Well, we have to defend the power station. We have no choice in this, and we have to defend the lead coastline. So basically, it's an ongoing battle. I think, with sea defences, we need the sea defences put in, but we're obviously funding for that. I think groins will play a major part in this and slowing down the erosion rates of shingle from one side to the other. There's also other areas coming into play now, which is the Water Quality Directive in 2015, where water quality at Littlestone is a concern, and I think the shape of their point changing is affecting currents and accretion levels inside the bay. Some people think it's producing more mud, but it's already has a knock-on effect. A coastline has no end. So basically, we've got to think outside the box a little bit and see and try and get this moving. It's been 2 years now, this application at KCC. It hasn't gone in because it's just not solid. It needs sorting out as a matter of urgency. The government's changed how it calibrates flood risk. Flood risk at the moment, we've been, I suppose it's really good news from an insurance point of view. We're not so much at flood risk because they're using 2 out of 3 of the actual measurements. One is overtopping of sea defences, and the second is fluvial flooding. Really, overtopping is not a major concern, but breach modelling is. It's the breach that worries people. If the sea ever gets in, if you think the coastal strip average height is 6 metres, if you think the average land height inside is 3 metres, then put on a tide, spring tide at 4.4 metres, with if it's a storm wave it could be another 4 metres, you can see where the concerns come from. That's not without even choke tides or surges up the North Sea or anything else. We are at risk if we have a breach. Therefore, we've got to strengthen our defences to make sure we don't get a breach. And that's part of the 6 cells we're looking at on sea defences around the actual Ronnie Mast coastline, protect it. And hopefully they'll carry us forward for the next 100 years. The government's revised figures on climate change and also rising sea levels are not my first concern. Major storm events are, because that's where you get a breach. And we're doing a lot of work with the European Union, the coastal communities, 2150 schemes and the like, on looking at how we actually manage the threat to the community, how we make ourselves more extreme proof in that sense, and manage the problems for the next 100 years. I think it can be done. It's just a case of thinking a little bit more creatively about the problems and working together.
And if we ignore it?
If we ignore it, we'll be at risk of one day, one dark night, like in 1287, we could find ourselves underwater. And no one wants that. So we really have to not put our finger in the dike, it's put our finger out and get something sorted.
BKRW Solicitors of Folkestone kindly sponsor the Looker TV.